So today we're going to learn how to do a sit spin. It is one of the three basic positions of a spin in skating. There's upright, sit, and camel. And today we're going to be learning a sit position. So we're going to be learning a forward sit. And a lot of skaters struggle with this because it does require a lot of strength on your left leg if you are a righty skater, and a lot of strength on your right leg if you are a lefty skater. But it is a little tricky to learn at first, and there are some steps that can help you learn it, but it does require a lot of practice and a lot of strength. So you just have to be patient with it and do the steps, learn the proper technique, and practice. And I promise you, you will be able to get a sit spin. The other thing about a sit spin that makes it tricky is that you have, for it to be considered a sit spin in skating, you have to be at or a little bit lower than 90 degrees. So you can't be sitting up too high, and it doesn't really look very good if you're sitting all the way low to the ice. And some skaters can do that, especially if they're like younger and they just kind of drop to the bottom of the spin. And they're somehow able to hold it. I can't hold it that low, but yes, you want to be a little lower than 90 degrees to have a nice looking sit spin. And especially if you're competing, for it to be called a sit spin or counted as a sit spin when you're competing, it needs to be 90 degrees. You want it to be a little lower than 90 degrees. So to start off, I'm going to show you what a sit spin looks like first. So you're going to start here, and I'm going to push into it, and then I'm going to sit all the way down and come up. So that's a sit spin. And so we're going to start with a couple exercises to help your sit spin. So first, we are going to do a shoot to duck just because it's important to do, and it really does help with the sit spin. So a shoot to duck just goes like this, where you go in front and you balance your leg out like that, and then you stand up. So there is that. There are a lot of skaters that I do know that can do a nice sit spin and don't necessarily have a good shoot to duck. But especially when you're first learning it, you should work on your shoot to duck, which is what I just did, because that really does help a lot. The next one we can do is, so after you do the shoot to duck and practice that, you can put that in part of your like warm up routine. We're going to do, and this just kind of helps build confidence with the skater, because when they see a sit spin, they kind of get a little overwhelmed with it. So we're going to start with like a dip spin, and you're going to just kind of push and like dip down and then stand up. It just helps them, like, it does help build confidence, and it does help them gain the timing of like sitting down and then coming up. So there's that. So the shoot to duck and the dip spin, those are two really, really good things to start off with. So I'll do both of those again. So we're going to do our shoot to duck. So I'm just going to push here and then stand up. You can grab the foot, you can let go of the foot. If you're training to do it, try not to grab your foot. But I always kind of like go down with my foot, and then it helps me like just engage my core a little bit more. And then I'll usually let go and stand up with it. And then I'm going to do the dip spin again. And when we're here, and then stand up like that. One thing I want to mention really quick too about the shoot to duck, especially if you're first learning it, when you come up from it, I want you to, so like you sit down, I want you to put your foot down and then stand up, especially if you're first learning it. A lot of skaters will they'll try and go down, and then they'll try and stand up on one foot, and they like go back on their heel, and we don't do that. So if you're first learning the shoot to duck, start low, put your foot down, and then come up, and then gradually develop the shoot to duck and make it a little better from there. And your goal would be, get some speed and try and make it as long as you can down the ice. Okay, and the dip spin is just a dip spin. It's just like a fun confidence builder. All right, so the first thing with the sit spin is everyone gets really confused because they start like super high like this, and then they try and do the spin, and then they're like up here, and they don't bend their knee first. So we have to make sure we start in a lower position. So you have to bend, and just like kind of explained in like my forward scratch video, you have to start with your left arm in front. You can bend it or straight, doesn't matter, as long as it doesn't push around you. So when you're here, we're gonna start bend, and then we're gonna just practice pushing and staying low like this for a second. So it's gonna be like a low pump for a second. So I'm gonna start low, pump and hold, just so I can stay in that low position. because up until this point, if they've learned scratch spin, they've maybe gotten away with a little knee bend and pushing into it, and that's okay. But the sit spin, you have to really bend and get into your hips, into this power angle for you to be able to do it. So we're going to try that one more time. We're going to bend and go into it like that. So after you've done that a couple times, hopefully that will help them kind of bend and get back to the center. A lot of times they'll try and do it and you'll just see them, they'll go out like this and they're not going to curve around. Next thing is you really want to make sure this free leg goes out and around when you go to sit. A lot of times kids will start and they go and then they just like try to whip their leg in front. They don't really necessarily give their body enough time to bend and bring the leg around so that we can sit, and it all happens at like the same time. So when you do this, you're going to push, bring your leg around, and then sit down. That leg has to make like a whole half circle right there. So now that we've kind of like broke down at the beginning a little bit, I want you to bend and just try to push and get into this like middle position right here. So you're going to try and get into getting your hands together and foot like here. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're here, push, get your hand and legs together like this. Okay, so then that is the other thing that a lot of kids struggle with, is that they struggle really hard with like getting their hands together, and then they'll sit back like this, like kind of what just happened there. They'll go here and then they'll sit, and they'll end up getting these like wide circles. So you don't want to do that. You really want to just start in baby steps. So even though, like I said earlier, you want to be at a 90-degree angle, I think the best way to start it is to at least build the confidence up and get the timing down with bringing your leg and your hands together at the same time. So, and then from there, we can work on doing that and then getting into that low position, because it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It will take a good amount of practice to get down. So we're going to do this one more time. We're going to bend, push, and bring our legs and hands together, and then stand up. The other little tip that I think is actually very important with spinning, especially doing these, like starting to build these harder spins, is always exiting the spins correctly. So when I'm here, you saw I did this, I went into it, and then I stood up from it, and then I finished. A lot of times skaters will just do this. They'll do what the coach asked, and then they'll drop their foot down and not finish it, which, you know, we're trying to do the spin and they're trying to practice, so that's fine. But it's like an extra rep when you do that, because I'm trying to build the strength to get into it. Now I'm doing the strength to get out of it. Doing that extra motion is just continuing to build strength. When you drop out of the spin like that, not only are you developing like a bad habit, but which is just that like relax, break open, but you're also building more strength and like that strict, correct position every single time, and it's just ingraining good muscle memory. So that's what I try to instill in my students, is that we at least can do the entry and the exit always right. Even if we don't get all the way down in the sit spin at first, it will come, but we want to at least try to do the beginning and the end the same, and building that good muscle memory. So we're going to practice this like intro sit one more time. So we're going to go push here, finish, and out. So even that is going to take you a little bit of time to get. But then as that gets stronger, you're then going to try and get lower into spin. So I have to bend a little lower, I have to push a little lower, and then get down into my sit spin, right? Because if I want to get low, I need to make sure I can get enough time for my body weight to get all the way down into that power angle right there and to get into that 90-degree position. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to push, hit the top of the spin, and then sit down. All right? So some key things that help: making sure the arms together, making sure the leg is turned out. A lot of times you'll see skaters, they'll flex their foot, it's going to hit the ice. You want to make sure your free leg lifts, goes around, and also lifts at a high enough level too. A lot of times skaters, they'll push and their legs down here and they're trying to sit and they can't do anything because it's too low. So your leg has to also be high enough as well. So you have to give it a nice good half rotation, high enough. And as you're doing that, you have to rotate the leg so that your inner thigh is facing the ceiling. So that's some common mistakes with the free leg. The other thing is that they don't get their hands together and they get this like this wide looking position, and then they're away from their hips, and then they're spinning back on their heel. So those are the two common ones I see the most with when they can't sit down. Try not to put your hands on your skating knee like this, right? Try not to do that. You know, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you do, but you know, it's not building that like core foundation and creating that position that you really want to have a technically correct sit spin. So I'm going to do one more time, and then I hope that this will help your sit spin practices.